the story we have to start out with this week is the ongoing Rock, Roman, Cody story, the We Want Cody movement, all this sort of stuff. So it basically, we could start off at the Royal Rumble. Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble. He's going to WrestleMania, as Michael Cole squeals. Cody is going to WrestleMania. He points at Roman. Roman's in the skybox. The jowls of Paul Heyman are shaking as Cody points to Roman Reigns and says, I'm coming for you, pal, at WrestleMania. Or so we assume. So on Friday, Friday's episode of SmackDown, Cody Rhodes comes out. He confronts Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns cuts a very, very good promo before that as well. I do want to mention that a little bit. If people haven't seen that, the Roman Reigns promo was pretty good. The first bit of actual human emotion that has come out of Roman in quite some time, where it really felt like he was shooting from the hip in more ways than one in that promo. But anyway, Cody comes out, confronts Roman Reigns, says he did some soul searching. He spoke with legends and said that Cody says, quote, finishing the story, taking the championship away from you, or he says, is finishing the story taking the championship away from you, or is finishing the story taking everything away from you? And the crowd kind of murmurs, I don't really know what he's talking about here. And Cody says, I want that title. I should have won that title. I had that title won last year, and you cheated. You took that thing away from me. Now the crowd's starting to get a little bit more buzzy. Okay, here we go. He says, I want the title, and I'm coming for you, Roman Reigns, but not at WrestleMania. And you would think from the social media response that the fans went absolutely apeshit, berserk, booing, going nuts. They really didn't. It was another kind of murmur, what's going on. And he says, but there is another guy, and there's a guy that I did soul searching with, and there's a legend that I talked to. And this is when the crowd now starts to realize, okay, we know who's coming out next. So The Rock's music hits. Obviously, the new board member of TKO, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, comes out. Crowd goes fucking bonkers for him. Cody hugs The Rock, leaves the ring, and we set up, presumably, Rock versus Roman for WrestleMania. So now, before we get into the stir that caused, what did you make of what happened on Friday on SmackDown with Cody, Roman, and The Rock?
All right, so the way that they got to Roman versus The Rock is utterly preposterous and makes no sense. Okay, Cody lost last year when Solo Sikoa thumbed him in the neck and fought all year to get back in position to get another crack at him, wins the Royal Rumble. And for him to simply step aside to give the match to The Rock, and with the premise of, well, I want to take everything from you. So I think the idea behind the story is Cody still wants to beat Roman and take the title from him, but that's not enough for him. He wants to take everything from him. So he's got this deal with The Rock where The Rock also wants a piece of this guy and wants to take the head of the table from him as well. Right.
Take the head of the table, and Cody did bring that up in his promo. He says, oh, you say this, all of this is yours, and this company is yours, and these people are yours, or whatever. And so the idea is that, again, like you're saying, I'm going to take everything from you, and I'm going to start that by having The Rock beat you at WrestleMania and take the head of the table from you, or whatever.
I think we all agree that that's just a preposterous way to get from the Cody match to the Rock match from a narrative standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It
sucks. And first off, he wins the Rumble. He points at Roman. That makes everybody in the world think that he's going for Roman. Right. Why wouldn't you? He wins the Rumble and points at Roman. You know what I mean?
And then the presser, he talked all kinds of shit like, oh, you didn't think we were going to do it. Like he even doubled down during the Rumble presser.
And then worse yet is, and we talked about this on the last week's Flagship, I think, is that when Cody and Seth did their thing on last week's Raw, where Seth is trying to appeal to Cody by saying, well, that title's the Hollywood title. That title is the one. I'm the wrestler's title. I'm the everyman title. I'm the title that your dad would have wanted, that sort of stuff. And for Cody to kind of nod willingly and then just go, nah, I'm going to go for Roman's title. We talked about it at the time. We were like, wow, geez, that really makes the Seth title look kind of shitty, right? Where Seth's just like, come on, you want this title? And Cody's just like, not really, no. But then on SmackDown to say, nah, not really, no either. To both of those, it's like, well, what are we doing here? What?
The point is, the story stinks. But the problem is, and there's so much to unpack here, is that this was thrust upon them when The Rock decided in early January that he wanted the match. And what have I been saying all along? Even after Cody won the Rumble, what was I saying? What was the only podcast on earth where the hosts were saying, I don't know if Cody versus Roman is locked in, even though he won the Rumble, even though he pointed at the guy, even though he says he's going to do the match. If Rock wanted the match, The Rock was getting the match. Period. End of story. Okay. And according to Dave Meltzer's reporting, he's been on top of this one from the jump more than anybody else. It was Rock decided in early January that he wanted the match. So they built towards Cody Roman. Rock decided he wanted in. So then everything they built towards basically had to be readjusted in the matter of a couple of weeks. And the best that they were able to come up with from a storytelling narrative standpoint was Cody was stepping aside to allow The Rock to come in and get a piece of this guy too, so they can literally take everything from him. I'm not saying it's good. I think everyone agrees it stinks. Cody can take everything from him by beating him at WrestleMania. He can take his title. He can claim he's the head of the table. He can claim it's his company. But they had to come up with something, right? Now, I'm going to say the same thing I've been saying for weeks. This idea that, this was Cody's story. Let's not rewrite history. This was The Rock's story first. Okay? From day one with this head of the table stuff, the idea was one day they're going to get The Rock to come do WrestleMania and do The Rock versus Roman Reigns.
Right. And 2 years ago, they wanted The Rock. And last year, they wanted The Rock. And it didn't happen any of those 2 years. So they kind of kept kicking the can down the road. And again, we've been talking about that. We were saying it. Go back and listen to our reaction show last year to WrestleMania, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But this has been going on for a while now. When are we going to be able to get The Rock? 2 years ago, are we getting him? No, we're not. Okay, that's fine. We're going to keep the Roman thing going on. That's fine anyway. Last year, are we going to get The Rock? No. Okay, fine. We'll do this Cody thing. But the idea was, no. We're not going to have this guy lose this title right now because the Rock thing is coming down the line. Now, you and I, and go back and listen to that WrestleMania instant reaction we did, I will still say, and to the day I die, I will say they fucked up by not having Cody beat Roman, because you can again, and I'll say it again and again and again and again and again, and people can disagree or argue with me, but they're wrong. Cody wins that title from Roman Reigns. Nothing changes in the Roman story, and nothing changes in the head of the table story either. The head of the table means just as much as this fucking title does at this point. So if Roman loses that title, and the rest of the year is about the tension between Jay and the tension between the Usos, you could still do that without the title. And this Rock thing coming in.
Does the Roman Jay Uso match at SummerSlam lose any juice without the title on the line? No, it loses none.
Because nobody thought Jay was going to beat him anyway.
And not only that, the Cody matches with Brock end up meaning more.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Cody would be the champion. But anyway, keep making your point.
Yeah, and then now it's the perfect, because now you see it happening in your head that if this whole thing, if Cody's the champion, or maybe it moved, I don't know. I don't know if Cody keeps the title throughout the entire year or whatever, but regardless, The Rock comes to show up finally to do this year's WrestleMania. You couldn't get him 2 years ago. You couldn't get him last year. You finally got him this year. He's here. He's ready to go. He confronts Roman, and they're going to battle for the quote-unquote head of the table. That's fine. Yep. You can do that. I don't think anybody has a problem with that, and that match makes all the sense in the world, and it does not need the title. And you don't convolute this Cody thing, and you don't make this Cody thing maybe, now are you going to do this for another year? Are you going to have Cody win at Money in the Bank? Is he going to win at SummerSlam? Like, whatever you're going to do. Like, all of that is solved last year. They had it last year. Last year was the perfect opportunity to say, okay, we maybe this is not what we wanted it to be. Maybe this isn't what the story was going to be. But goddamn it, we've gotten a golden parachute here with this Cody thing, coming back from the injury, starting at the Royal Rumble, getting the company hot. It's time. Let's do it. And we said it at the time. We said it in the instant reaction. They fucked up. They had a golden opportunity, and they fucked it up, and now they're still chasing their tail a year later after that. Because now, and I even said it at the time too, if he's not going to beat him, if Cody's not going to beat Roman at WrestleMania last year, just fucking give Roman, he's the all-time champion forever. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Just and really what they did is they kind of did do that, because then they created the cuck title that Seth Rollins has, because they realized, Roman's not going to lose this title for a long time, and he's never here. So you know what? We'll create a brand new title. Here's the Seth Rollins title. And that's kind of what you had to do out of necessity, because Roman wasn't going to be there. He wasn't going to be around a bunch. He was going to wrestle whatever his 7 times that he wrestled this year or whatever. And it never made, so there was so many reasons it did not make sense last year to have Roman retain that title over Cody. And now we're still kind of seeing the reverberations of that a year later. And God only knows how long we're going to feel the reverberations of that, because now there isn't a good time, and there's not a right person to do it anyway, because even if The Rock does beat Roman and wins the title, does anybody want to say The Rock is the champion? No.
Listen, last year was the mistake. The mistake wasn't on SmackDown last week.
No.
The mistake, the root of this problem, was Cody not winning last year, because everything you said was true. There was nothing Roman did between last year's WrestleMania and this WrestleMania that necessitated having those titles. And it would have enhanced everything else in the company because Cody would have been out there defending the title. You do whatever you do with that. And what you could have built to this year was Roman versus The Rock for the head of the table.
Yep.
Which has been the long-term story from the day the bloodline was formed. And again, I will not accept people retconning this. The long-term endgame here has always been The Rock challenging Roman for the head of the table.
Right, back to October 2020 or whenever this shit started. September, October 2020.
That was the story of the bloodline while Cody was still in AEW. You're not going to sit here and retcon and convince me that Cody was always the story. He was not. Cody became the story while they were, while The Rock kept turning him down and Cody got hot and he became, and Cody Roman has become a thing since then. But the what they've been building to with the bloodline from day one is not Cody, who was in AEW at the time. It was Rock. And now Rock wants to do it. And they weren't going to tell him no, whether he was on the board or not. But now that he's on the board, you could really forget about it. They're not going to tell him no. Okay, so your absolute Rich is 100% right. The mistake was last year, not on Friday. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I know everybody wants to point and laugh at Paul Levesque and say that, he made this horrible booking decision with this terrible story that they told to get from Cody to The Rock and all that. Here's the thing about Paul Levesque, and I need people to understand this. He's a middle manager.
Mm-hmm.
The headline here isn't that Paul Levesque fucked up this storyline and is a bad booker and screwed everything up. The headline here is that Paul Levesque doesn't have any real power when it comes to the top of the card. This decision to go with The Rock versus Roman Reigns came from above Paul Levesque's head. It came from the non-wrestling people in TKO and The Rock. That's who made this decision. Paul Levesque has no say. Just like, and I don't know who needs to hear this, and we've made this point before, Paul Levesque had no say last year when Roman Reigns beat Cody.
Go back to that instant reaction for WrestleMania weekend. We should relink that because I think a lot of people need to re-listen to that episode because a lot of stuff that we said there is still very, very, very true a year later. But we gave you the pecking order of who has the power in that company. And let me tell you, Paul Levesque was behind a couple of people.
He's a middle manager. That was a Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman decision. There are quotes reported elsewhere by high-ranking people inside the company that essentially say Roman loses the title when Roman and Paul Heyman decide Roman loses the title. Not Paul Levesque. Okay? He's not on the board. He'll never be on the board. He's essentially a middle manager. He's had the rug. I'm sure he wanted Cody to win last year. I know for a fact. We know for a fact He wanted Cody to wrestle Roman this year. But these are not his calls. They come from over his head. Okay? Here's what Paul Levesque's in charge of. What are we going to do with the damage control? Full control, Paul Levesque. Ron, the Truth Killings, well within Paul Levesque's power. Top of the card, he takes marching orders. He does what he's told. Some point in January, Paul Levesque got a phone call from either Nick Khan or whoever the fuck. And they said, Rock's doing the match. Make it work on TV. And middle manager Paul's job is to make it make sense on TV. And I'll be honest, I would love to point and laugh at the guy too. I think he did the best he could out of a terrible situation with the way that they laid out the story. And we'll get to it as we move on in this conversation. It's honestly, it's going to work out for them in the end. At least I think so. You may disagree, but we'll get to that. But in terms of
it
what
always
we saw,
does. It always fucking does with them. So of course it will.
In terms of what we saw on that SmackDown segment when Cody gave up the spot, okay, I thought that segment was fascinating because it was one of those scenarios where it's one of those things where as insider fans, it's a work and it's kayfabe and they're out there telling a story, but the players involved are shooting. And let me explain. And it's just this fascinating thing where they're all out there playing their roles in this story, but protecting themselves and protecting their spots. Roman comes out there to cut his initial promo. He brings up Seth Rollins' name, and then he immediately goes, no pop. And now we know that was the receipt. That's now been reported that was the receipt. Because Seth Rollins, the week earlier, in his plea to Cody to challenge for his title instead, because it's the working man's title, and the title Dusty really wouldn't have wanted. And the other guy's never around. He's not a real champion. So reportedly, Roman didn't like that. So he comes out, makes sure he says Seth's name. Seth gets no reaction, and he buries the guy by saying no pop. That's shoot number one. Cody comes out. He knows that this segment, the end result is he's losing his spot in WrestleMania. And he's going to be in there with Roman Reigns and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Do you know how important this fucking 5-6 minutes is for Cody? He can't afford to get eaten up in there. He can't afford to look like a beta with these alphas. Two of the biggest alphas in wrestling history in the ring with him. Okay? So he brings The Rock out. Go watch that stare down. He cannot let The Rock eat him up. His body language has to be sound. His eye contact has to be solid. Cody cannot break that eye contact, and he knows it. We all know Cody's a politician. We all know Cody taught Bryan Danielson how to lie. We talk about Cody all the time, Rich. He's the ultimate worker. He knew what was going on in that ring. It was a shoot with those three egos wrapped up in kayfabe. And he went eye to eye with The Rock because he knew he had to. Okay? And The Rock, just that aura and presence can consume anyone, make anyone wilt. He pulls him in for that handshake, The Rock. Cody's facial expression is so vital in that moment. And he goes with an expression that says, was this the right thing to do? That's what his eyes said as he gazed off into nowhere. Because he knew he had to keep the fans in this scenario. And he has. He had to have the right body language and look to tell the fans, to put questions in their mind, is this what we really want? He had to garner sympathy in that moment, while at the same time standing up and being an alpha with the biggest alpha in the history of the business. That moment, that 5 or 6 minutes, was utterly fascinating to me from that standpoint. It was one of those things in wrestling where there's so many moving parts, and you know that the people involved are all keenly aware of how it can affect everything that happens moving forward.
Yeah, and the type of stuff that doesn't exist.
Himself perfectly.
And the stuff that doesn't kind of exist in today's wrestling nearly as much, where now guys aren't as protective of their spots and protective of their egos and that sort of stuff. This is something classically out of 80s wrestling, early 90s wrestling, whatever, where it's like all these dudes are fighting for these spots, and these fucking egomaniac assholes. Nobody wants to relent. Nobody wants to be, like you said, the beta in the sea of alphas or whatever. Everyone's doing the, there used to be those classic like Nitro segments where everybody was trying to like get behind Hulk Hogan to like make sure their face was seen or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Buff Bagwell would sit in the middle and do his pose every 10 seconds just so you didn't forget. Oh, hey, there's Buff Bagwell. I can see Buff Bagwell there. Like everybody was just so protective of every single second that they were on a television screen, every single second that they were involved in a wrestling show. It was so manipulative and carefully planned and plotted out or whatever. And nowadays people just don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? Guys just come and they go. And Roman even said it himself, titles come and go, wins and losses, whatever. Like those guys, they don't care. But in this moment you saw again a throwback where it's like all these dudes, some of the biggest stars in this wrestling industry, all fighting for this spot and all understanding the egos that are involved and the manipulation that's involved and all this sort of stuff going on. And you said they all had to nail it. And Roman nailed it by throwing that receipt back at Seth and having all the presence in the world. And like I said, having a great Roman. Sometimes you can tell when Roman's got his really generic promo and he's just like, I'm the head of the table. You know, he just drones on and says the same shit that he said 1,000 times. This wasn't that promo. This was Roman knowing that he's got to bring his A game. And Paul Heyman right by his side, I'm sure, talking with him backstage about what lines he's going to say and what he was going to do and all that sort of stuff. Cody had to nail every line that Cody had to say. He had to have all the confidence in the world and all the presence.
He can't look like a lesser.
No.
In the same ring as The Rock, especially when The Rock is getting his match.
Right, and that's why he made sure to point out, because a lot of times they don't do that in WWE as well. Like, he pointed out, hey, look, everybody knows last year I beat you. I had you beaten. You cheated. So I that title should be mine. You should be done. All that stuff should be gone. I should have already taken everything away from you because last year I did, and you cheated. And everybody knows you cheated. That sort of stuff, which is something they don't usually do with the Roman thing. They kind of pretend that Roman's like this dominant champion that beats everybody. We talk about it all the time, that they don't. It's weird that like we all see what happens, but then when they talk about the Roman stuff, they're like, oh, one of the most dominant champions of all time. And it's like very rarely do the baby faces say, look, brother, you cheat all the fucking time. Like you don't actually win. Like everybody's running in and helping you or whatever. But Cody had to say it in that moment to kind of give himself, like you said, not to be a lesser. And then Cody having to say, look, I'm going to come for you, and I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to take everything away from you, but this guy's going to do it. And then he has to bring The Rock out, and he has to make it seem like he's the one bringing The Rock out. Not that The Rock took his spot, but that he's gifting The Rock this spot. I'm gifting you this great moment, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
And then the facial expression and body language to say, to ensure that he gets sympathy by making that decision. It doesn't just look like, you know, some weak clown who's just being submissive to The Rock. That was important too. And from that aspect, he nailed everything because we've obviously seen what has happened in the aftermath. Now, let's get this out of the way right now. I don't buy for 1 second that Paul Levesque did not know that The Rock was going to be in this match when he booked the Royal Rumble. That's preposterous. It's utterly preposterous. They knew full well, and we have the reporting from Meltzer now to back it up, but they knew full well that this is what we were going to do and that this is what they were going to do, The Rock versus Roman Reigns. And they moved forward with Cody winning the Royal. And now you might say, well, then why would you book Cody to win the Royal Rumble? Because the whole point of this story now is you're supposed to feel bad for Cody. That's the point. That's the heat. The heat is you're supposed to feel bad that Cody gave up his spot to The Rock. This is why they've leaned into the We Want Cody stuff. This is why they're handing out signs. This is why they're having their wrestlers tweet things out in support of Cody. Okay. So if Cody doesn't win the Royal Rumble and if Cody doesn't give up his spot, then they're not telling the story that Cody is sympathetic. That's why he won the Royal Rumble. This was not anyone who thinks Cody won the Royal Rumble and then 48 hours later or later that week, Paul Levesque found out that they're changing the match on him is out of their mind. It's preposterous. That's not how it happens. I know that would be the funnier, situation.
Right. He books the Rumble, and then they come to him and say, "Hey, pal, just so you know, The Rock's got to be in the main event, not Cody." And go, "Oh man, what?"
I know we all want to point and laugh and pretend that the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, but I don't buy it for a second. They knew, and they told Levesque, "Look, make it work." The Rock's doing the match, so they told middle manager Paul, make it work. Come up with a story. You are head of creative. Figure it out. Okay? We've all gone to our jobs and had that day at work, right? I don't know. Figure it out. That's what and he had to figure it out. And his plan was, all right, we're going to do the Daniel Bryan story here, or a derivative of it, with Cody, because we're going to do this Rock versus Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania. Unless they switch gears on Thursday.
And they could. Yeah, there's always the idea that let's just let the crowd, let's let them force this match. Let's let them force Cody into this match. So you do a 3-way, or maybe we do
The Rock's going to be in that match.
The Rock's going to be in that match. Or you do a day 1, day 2, a night 1, night 2 thing.
Yes,
where maybe
that's possible
it's
too.
The
Absolutely.
Rock and Roman on night 1, and then it's Roman versus Cody on night 2, or flip-flop it, whichever one you want to do. Like that.
But here's what I'm telling you. The Rock is stepping into a ring with Roman Reigns.
Absolutely. The Rock will be in the ring with Roman Reigns, yes.
And I'm going to tell you why. And I don't know who needs to hear this.
Is it because he's The Rock?
Okay. I don't give a shit how many We Want Cody chants there are or this. Listen to me, and listen to me carefully. Here's why people above Paul Levesque's head decided that when The Rock wanted to do this match, that The Rock was getting the match. Because more people are going to watch WrestleMania on Peacock if it's The Rock versus Roman Reigns than if it's Cody versus Roman Reigns. Period. Full stop. I will not debate it. You cannot debate it. And that's why I've been saying all along, if The Rock wanted the match, he was getting the match. And your fan service goes out the window at that point. They don't care. This is not, how many decades have they been telling you that this is not pro wrestling? You stop viewing this through the lens of pro wrestling and the stories have to make sense. Bullshit. They don't care whether the stories make sense. This is corporate sports entertainment. What is going to get us the most eyeballs?
Right, we're a content factory. They are a content creation factory.
Yeah, that's it. It's The Rock. That's who gets them the most eyeballs. We'll deal with Cody later. We'll figure it out. Paul, figure it out. So what did Paul go with? We're going to make Cody sympathetic and more sympathetic and maybe even a bigger star and maybe even make people want it more. And all I've seen in the aftermath, and to me, and listen, I don't have a dog in the fight. I have no investment in this company or the stories they tell. I think this company stinks. All my listeners know that. I don't give a shit what they do. Because I think WWE wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, sucks. It doesn't appeal to me. It's not for me. Okay? So as someone with no dog in the fight, okay, me looking from the outside in, you tell me, Rich, if you agree with me. I think Cody is hotter today than he was the day he won the Royal Rumble because of the way they've handled
God,
this.
yes. Oh, God. And yeah, of course.
And I know people want me, and hold on, and I know people want me to come on here and have fun with punching bag Levesque. But if this shit was his idea, it was a stroke of genius because it's working. Cody is hotter today than he was when he won the Royal Rumble. And there's no real outrage.
No, dude. Oh my God! On
outrages.
SmackDown, like I said, for people that if you just follow via social media or discussions that you had with other people, you would think the SmackDown segment was Cody saying, "I'm not going to do it at WrestleMania," and the crowd losing their mind and booing and going nuts and going crazy, and then The Rock coming out and them going, "No, boo, boo." That's not at all what happened in the live audience. Cody said it's not going to happen at WrestleMania. They went, all right. Then The Rock came out and everybody lost their fucking mind and jumped up and down and screamed and took videos. And went nuts.
Now listen, is The Rock going to get booed moving forward?
He might.
Maybe. I probably. But this is the story they're telling now. They want you to be sympathetic towards Cody. Cody's hotter now than when he won the Rumble.
Yeah.
So they have found a way to get The Rock in the match, which means more people are going to watch the match.
Right.
More people are going to be interested in the match.
Because your people that aren't watching week by week are going to get The Rock versus Roman, and that's going to look good on a poster, and you're going to be able to throw that poster everywhere, and it's going to go well. And The Rock's going to do all his fucking media appearances and go on ESPN and all the Nick Khan's Rolodex. He might still use a Rolodex. Nick Khan looks like the type of guy that would still use a Rolodex. That Rolodex is going to be filled up with press junkets for The Rock to show up on whatever insert your show is and promote his match at WrestleMania streaming live on Peacock.
And what makes more sense for TKO? Sending The Rock to do all those things, Dwayne Johnson to do all those things, or Cody? No disrespect to Cody. The answer's obvious. Again, stop viewing this through the lens of a wrestling company. Stop viewing this through the lens of, but the story doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter if the story makes sense. They don't care. You think Ari Emanuel or Nick Khan give a shit whether the story makes sense? They don't give a single shit whether the story makes sense. Okay? This is why I don't care about this company. Because they never care whether the story makes sense.
The story doesn't have to make sense for them.
You're the ones that worked yourself into a shoot with this shit, not me. Okay? They don't care about Cody finishing the story. They care about, can we get X amount more people watching Peacock on WrestleMania Sunday with this guy or this guy? And it's obviously The Rock and not Cody. Sorry. That's how this company operates. And in the TKO era, that kind of shit is only going to get worse, not better.